Alright guys, I am back again with another deck profile for Cardfight Vanguard Dear Days on Nintendo Switch. This time we got version 2 of my Keter Sanctuary Hexaorb deck. So version 2 is of course everything through the additional special set, so through a fraction of the booster set 11. However, once again this deck does not actually use any cards from that last DLC pack, so you can play it with just cards from up through the second additional card pass. And this deck has pretty much been overhauled, with Hexaorb herself getting a new form that can allow us to restand our rear guards natively now. So it makes it a lot easier for you to get your full 5 attacks in every turn. So as always, we'll be going through the deck, and then we'll show it off in one card fight. So starting first with the ride deck, we have our Grade 0 starter, which is Tri-Connect Sorceress. So when she's rode upon, if you in second draw a card, same old starter skill, like always. Next for the Grade 1, we have Tier Square Sorceress. So she has 2 auto abilities. First one says when this unit is rode upon by Pentagleam Sorceress, you can counterblast one and draw a card. So very simple ability, just giving you some extra draw power when you ride on top of her. And then her second auto ability is active when she's on rearguard circle. That says once per turn, when your drive check reveals a trigger unit, you can counterblast one to choose one of your opponent's front row rearguards and put it on the bottom of their deck. So this card never really ends up on rearguard circle, so you don't actually ever really use this second skill for anything. So next for the Grade 2, we of course have Pentagleam Sorceress. So again, she has 2 auto abilities. First one says when this unit is rode upon by Hexaorb Sorceress, you can look at 3 cards on the top of your deck and put them on the top of your deck in any order. So just a nice ability letting you stack the top 3 cards of your deck in order to hopefully set up some good drive checks for that turn so you can get some triggers and set off Hexaorb's ability, or potentially to, just stack the cards that you want to draw into with some of your rearguard skills or what have you. So a nice ability setting up your later plays. And then she also has her second auto ability that says when this unit is placed on rearguard circle, you look at the top card of your deck and put it on the top or bottom of your deck, and if you put it on the bottom of your deck, then this unit gets power plus 2000 until end of turn. So once again, this card usually doesn't end up on rearguard circle, so most of the time this ability won't be used. If you do somehow get her onto rearguard circle, like if you're playing against Prison or something, then you do get a scry, getting to check the top card, and you can put it on either the top or the bottom. So if you do get to use it by some chance, it can be a decent ability, but yeah, most of the time it's not going to see any usage. So then lastly for the Grade 3, we have Hexaorb Sorceress. So we still are running the OG form of Hexaorb in our ride deck to go into her first, and she has her auto ability that says when your drive check reveals a trigger unit, you choose one of your rear guards and it gets power plus 10,000 until end of turn. So a pretty nice power up ability letting you give 10k to any one of your rear guards every time you check a trigger. And of course that is on top of the 10k that you would get from the trigger itself. So you can stack those on one unit, you can spread them out. If you have a booster behind Hexaorb herself and your opponent, tries to guard her with something besides a perfect guard, that will effectively turn what would normally be a 2 to pass into a 1 to pass, since you could give the trigger power to Hexaorb and then the booster behind her could get powered up from that skill, giving a total of 20k to that column. So it can make it a lot harder for your opponent to guard your Vanguard attack, or you can just use it to strengthen one of your rearguard attacks for later. So overall, very nice ability. And then she also has her activate skill that says once per turn, if you Persona Road this turn, you can counterblast one and soul blast one to reveal up to 1 critical trigger or front trigger from your hand and put it on the top of your deck. And this unit gets drive plus 1 until end of turn. So we're actually not running any copies of this form of Hexaorb in the main deck anymore, since we're running 4 copies of her new form. So the only way to actually be able to use this ability is with our Regales piece, since we are running Gradius Great All. So if you stay on this form on turn 4 and then you use the Regales piece to get your Persona Ride active, you still can potentially use this skill. at which point it will let you set up a trigger on the top of your deck and give you an extra drive check. So it is a ±0 overall, since you're losing a card from your hand but gaining an extra drive. But you will be guaranteed at least one critical or front trigger stacked on top of your deck. So that will give you at least one instance of our first ability triggering as well. Plus a lot of our rear guards have abilities that go off when we check into a trigger as well. So giving you a guaranteed trigger is still a nice thing. Now, there is the option, if you don't have any crits or fronts in your hand, you still can go ahead and use this ability and just gain the extra drive from it, in which case it would be an extra +1 to your hand, but of course you wouldn't be guaranteed to get that trigger anymore. So yeah, most of the time you're not going to be using this ability because you usually want to Persona Ride into the new form of Hexaorb on turn 4 to use her skills. So this is more of a fallback than anything. But if you do end up in a situation where you can use it, it still can be useful. So that is the ride deck. Moving on to the main deck. First off, for the grade 3s, we of course have 4 copies of the new form for Hexaorb. Hexaorb Sorceress Aquamarine. So she has a continuous ability that says this unit is also regarded as Hexaorb Sorceress. So this ability is only active on Vanguard Circle, but that means that you can Persona Ride into this card on top of the original Hexaorb, so you still will be able to get your Persona Ride bonuses when you go into this card on turn 4. So then she also has her second continuous ability that says if you Persona Rode this turn, this unit gets Drive +1, and the power increase of your trigger effects gets +10,000. So the turn you ride into this card, you will be guaranteed to have this ability online, since you will get the Persona Ride thanks to her first ability, and it gives her an extra drive check, so that is a +1, and of course that extra trigger chance. And the power increase from all of your triggers will become 20,000. So that is very nice in powering up your units. Again, it makes it harder for them to guard your Vanguard if they don't perfect guard it. So that can be very dangerous, especially if you check a front trigger that will give a whopping 20k to your entire front row. Now, this ability is only active if you Persona Rode, so you do want to try to consistently as possible get that Persona Ride every turn after that, so you can get that extra drive check and that extra power gain. But you should be able to pull that off most of the time, since we have a lot of cards in this deck that can help with that. So then lastly, she also has her auto ability that says when a trigger unit is revealed for the drive check of the battle this unit attacked, you can Soul Blast one to choose one of your rear guards and stand it. So a very nice ability, letting you get 4 or potentially 5 attacks per turn, depending on how many triggers you check during Aquamarine's attack, which of course again she will be having triple drive thanks to her second ability, so you will have more chances to possibly get those triggers. And of course the multitude of cards in this deck that helps us, scry into our deck and try to stack some triggers on the top. Can't help set up those plays as well. So version 1 of this deck still could potentially do 5 attacks in one turn, but it was a lot more piece reliant and resource heavy, since you had to rely on your rear guards to be able to do that. But now, since our Vanguard has an inherent restanding ability, that makes it a lot easier for you to get that multi-attack combo off, and you should be able to pretty consistently at least get 4 attacks per turn, possibly 5 without too much trouble. And of course those attacks should be hitting some pretty good numbers as well, thanks to her power-up ability, and a lot of our rear guards being able to strengthen themselves as well. So overall, just a very cool upgraded Vanguard for this deck. So next up we have 3 copies of Twinned Great Magic Totone. So she has her auto ability that says at the end of the battle your unit attacked, you can Counterblast 1 and perform all of the following according to the trigger units revealed in that battle's drive check. So if you revealed a critical trigger, you can choose one of your opponent's rear guards and put it on the bottom of their deck. And if you revealed a front trigger, you can choose one of your grade 2 or less rear guards and stand it. So I still am running this card at a 3 of, since for one thing I just really love its artwork. And another thing, I think this card is still extremely useful in this deck. It's definitely not as vital as before, since like I said, Aquamarine can restand our rear guards now, so you don't have to rely on her as much to get that multi-attack. But again, she still can make it a lot easier to get that full attack combo. since with this in your front row, even when you're on Aquamarine, checking into just one front trigger would still allow you to get your full 5 attack combo, since you can use Aquamarine's skill to restand Totone, and then Totone's skill to restand your other front row rigger. So that does make it a lot easier for you to still be able to get those full 5 attacks, even if you can't set up the top cards of your deck fully or whatever, and you can only check into one trigger that turn. This does make it a lot easier in those situations. It also helps on turn 3 when you're still on OG Hexaorb to be able to potentially get 4 attacks that turn as well, since obviously you won't be able to restand with your Vanguard on that turn. If you have Totone out, you still might be able to get 4 attacks. So I think it's still a really useful ability. Of course, it also has the other part of the skill that lets you bottom deck one of your opponent's cards, so that will be a -1 to them as well. That part of the skill obviously isn't as important, but still useful nonetheless. And of course, another cool thing about this card is it's not once per turn, so if you do happen to check into your over trigger and give your rear guards drive checks, if you have the resources to pull it off, you can potentially use this skill multiple times in one turn if you get lucky on some of your drive checks, and potentially gets a whole lot of attacks in that turn as well. So that's definitely a high roll play, but it's really funny if you pull it off. So yeah, I still like keeping this card in as a 3 of. So next up we have one copy of our normal order, Wish for Tomorrow. So you can play it with a Counterblast 1 and a Soul Blast 1, and revealing a critical trigger or front trigger from your hand. And its effect says if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, you can draw a card and put the card revealed for this cost on the top of your deck. So I am still mostly just running this card because I absolutely love its artwork. So it's definitely not vital by any means, but it still can be a useful play. Now this card is a -1 overall, since you're minusing to play the order and taking a card out of your hand to put on top of your deck and only drawing 1 to replace it. So it is a -1 to your card advantage, but again, it can guarantee a trigger on the top of your deck, having you stack a crit or a front. So again, if you want to pull off the Totone combo and you got a front in your hand, you can guarantee that with this card. And of course, thanks to Aquamarine's skill, giving you an extra drive check, that +1 from that can help make up for the minus of this cost. And it is really the only way to guarantee a trigger on the top of your deck now, since we won't have access to OG Hexaorb's Persona Riding effect most of the time. So yeah, if you want to replace this card with literally anything else, you can feel free to do so, but I did keep it in as a 1 of. So then lastly, for the grade 3s, we just have one copy of our normal order Regales piece, Gradius Greydol. So you can play it if you have a grade 3 Vanguard with Persona Ride and you did not ride this turn, and it lets you activate Persona Ride. So just another option to get that Persona Ride off. Again, you definitely want to get that every turn to either activate OG Hexaorb's ability, or to get the extra drive check and the power gain from Aquamarine's continuous skill. So having another option in order to get that a little bit more consistently is definitely very helpful. So that is all the grade 3s. Moving on to the grade 2s. First off, we have 4 copies of Octaray Sorceress. So she has 2 auto abilities. First one says when this unit is placed on rearguard circle, if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Sorceress in its card name, you can Counterblast 1 to look at the top 2 cards from your deck. Choose up to 2 cards from among them and put them into your hand, and put the rest on the top of your deck in any order. And if you put 2 cards into your hand, you choose a card from your hand and put it on the bottom of your deck. So this is an extremely helpful ability. It is a Counterblast 1 for a +1, since you can check the top 2 and put possibly 1 into hand and leave the other on top if it's a trigger or something that you want to have on top. Or if it's something that you would rather have on the bottom, you can just go ahead and put both those cards into your hand, and then you take a card from your hand and bottom deck it. So very versatile in the fact that you can bottom deck the one that you just added to your hand, or if you'd rather have both those cards in your hand, you can hold on to both of them and bottom deck something else that you already had in your hand prior. So a very nice ability, giving you a +1, a scry, and potentially letting you set up a card on the top of your deck if you find one that you want to keep there. So just a very helpful ability all around. And then she also has her second auto skill that says when this unit attacks, if you Persona Road this turn, this unit gets power plus 5,000 until end of turn. So pretty basic power up ability, putting her to at least 25k on your Persona Ride turns. And this ability is not once per turn, so if you restand her off of either Totone or Aquamarine's skill, it will activate on her second attack as well, giving her a second 5k power up that will stack. So very nice offensive card as well. So next up we got 2 copies of Quadracast Sorceress. So her auto ability says when this unit is placed on rearguard circle, if you have a Vanguard with Sorceress in its card name, you look at the top 2 cards from your deck and put them on the top of your deck in any order and soul charge 1. So again, a helpful ability letting you build up that soul resource, which is obviously very important in this deck, especially since Aquamarine skill has a soul blast cost for you to get your restand. So this lets you look at the top 2 and put them in any order and then soul charge 1. So it's basically a selective soul charge and also a bit of a scry. So if you check the top 2 and find like a trigger and a non-trigger, you can set it up to soul charge the non-trigger and keep the trigger on the top of your deck for your drive check later. So a resource gain and a bit of a scry, very helpful in this deck. So next up we have 1 copy of Four-Side Glow Sorceress. So she has an auto ability when she's on the front row rearguard circle that says once per turn when this unit is chosen by the ability of your grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Sorceress in its card name, you can Soul Blast 2 and countercharge 1, and if this unit's power was increased or decreased by a trigger effect this turn, you draw a card. So this can be a pretty helpful ability. It is the countercharge engine for the deck, which this deck isn't too counterblast heavy, but if the game goes long, it can get kind of tight sometimes, especially if you use Totone a lot. So having that option still can be useful. Now it is a Soul Blast 2, and again, you most of the time want to save your soul for Aquamarine. But we do have quite a few ways to soul charge in this deck, so if you can build up that soul enough, it won't be too much of a problem. And of course, having this as another draw engine can be nice as well. So it can be a good card. It's a bit more situational. It does have to be chosen by the ability of your Vanguard in order to go off. So if you're on Aquamarine and you're trying to use the Totone combo, it can conflict a little bit there, since normally you'd want to target Totone with your Vanguard skill and then target this card with Totone's skill, in which case this ability wouldn't go off. But if you don't have Totone in the front row, this can be a very nice card. Or if you do have this card in your front row alongside Totone, you do just have to check into 2 triggers on that drive check, and then you'll be able to still use this card's ability and possibly restand one of your back row boosters off of Totone's skill, and your full play will still be able to go off. So yeah, I did just drop it down to a 1 of, mostly because of the little bit heavier Soul Blast cost and the bit more situationalness of it. But yeah, I did keep it in the deck overall just to have at least an option for a countercharge engine. So next we have 3 copies of Effulgent Wizard. So he's got 2 auto abilities. First one says when this unit attacks, if you have a Vanguard with Sorceress in its card name, you look at the top card of your deck, and if your Vanguard is stand, then you may put the card you looked at into the soul. So this is a pretty helpful ability. If you attack with this card before your Vanguard, you get to scry the top card of your deck, and then you can soul charge it if you want to. So again, another helpful soul building option, and a way to potentially increase the chances of you getting a trigger during your drive checks that turn. And again, this ability is not once per turn, so if you restand this card after your Vanguard attack through whatever method, then you attack with this card again, this ability will go off again. Now you won't have the soul charge option on that second attack, but you still will be able to scry the top card of your deck, so you'll at least know what your first damage check will potentially be next turn. So still a helpful ability in both those situations. And then he's also got his second auto skill that says when your drive check reveals a trigger unit, this unit gets power plus 5,000 until end of turn. So once again, just a basic power ability, gaining extra 5k for every trigger that you get. So of course that will stack with any of the actual power from the trigger itself. So again, should be able to hit some pretty decent numbers. So that is all of the grade 2s. Moving on to the grade 1s. First off, we have 3 copies of Balmy Violinist. So he has an auto ability when he's on the back row rearguard circle. That says when your other unit stands by your card's ability, you can put this unit into your soul to choose one of the units stand, and it gets power plus 5,000 until the end of turn. So this ability is a -1 since you're losing him off of your board, but again you gain that extra soul out of it, so another resource engine for the deck, and you also get a slight power gain for the units that you restand off of either Totone or Aquamarine. So it can be a nice ability, especially if you're desperate, you know, for that extra soul resource. So it's used sometimes. It's not a super vital ability. If you want to replace this with something else, you can, I suppose. But I did just go ahead and put him in to have that extra soul gaining option and a way to just, you know, clear him off my board if I'm facing a control deck or whatever, while still gaining something out of it. So next up we have 2 copies of Magic of Water Droplets. Watatair? I guess. I'm doing my best with these names, people. I don't know what to tell you. But anyway, she's got her auto ability that says when this unit is put on Guardian Circle, if you have a Vanguard with Sorceress in its card name, you look at the top card of your deck and put it on the top or bottom of your deck. So this is just a defensive card. She is just a 5k shield. She doesn't gain any extra shield power or anything. But you do get to get that scry when you guard with her, and you can put the card you find on the top or the bottom. So if you find a trigger, you can leave it on top to potentially damage check into. Or if you find something you don't want to damage check into, you can send it to the bottom and hope you damage check into something better. So it can just be a nice defensive option in this deck. So next we got 2 copies of Live Saving Angel Digriel. So she has an auto ability when she's on a back row rearguard circle that says when your other unit in the same column as this unit stands from a card's effect, you may return this unit to your hand. So pretty basic ability, just lets you bounce her back to your hand when you restand whatever's in front of her with your other card skills. So I was running Replenishment Angel in this deck, and I wound up replacing it with this card, mostly to just keep the counterblast costs of the deck overall down. So again, this isn't the most vital ability in the world. It's, again, as useful against control decks to just clear off your board. But other than that, it's not real important. This deck's grade 1 lineup is kind of lacking overall, but we don't really have better options, to be honest, since both Totris and Lala Rita became pretty much useless thanks to Aquamarine. So honestly, I don't really have much of anything better to put besides this. If you want to go with Replenishment Angel for the extra scrying ability or stacking ability, you can go with that option. That is another counterblast cost, like I said. But yeah, I am just going with this card. So whatever you want to do with this grade 1 lineup, it's a bit on the loose side. So the only other grade 1s we have are Sentinels. So first off, we just have 3 copies of Aegis Mayor Dragon, just your standard Pervigard. As well as, of course, 1 copy of the Blitzholder Elementaria Sanctitude, which you can play without paying the cost if your opponent's Vanguard has triple drive. So that is all the grade 1s. Moving on to the grade 0s, we just have our trigger lineup, which is still 5 crit, 6 front, 4 heal, and 1 over. So starting first with the crit triggers, we have 3 copies of White Fang Witch Disma, just your vanilla crit. Additionally, we have 2 copies of Blade Feather Dragon, crit with a skill. If they end up battle boosted, you can put it into your soul to give one of your units plus 2k until end of turn. So another soul charging option. If you want to mess with the ratios and run more of this and less of Disma or whatever, that's pretty much up to you. Next for the fronts, we have 4 copies of Bard of Heavenly Song, Alpac. So front with a skill, if your opponent's Vanguard's greater or greater, get shield plus 5,000, so your 20k shield front trigger. Additionally, we have 1 copy of Resolute Mage, just your vanilla front. As well as our other vanilla front, 1 copy of Merciless Buffalo, which is still a fantastic artwork. So So then for the heals, we have 4 copies of Circulating Sorceress. Again, vanilla heal. As always, if you want to run any effect heals, you can. And then lastly, for our over trigger, we have our 1 copy of Light Dragon Deity of Honors, a Martanoa. So his additional effect says, until end of turn, you also perform drive checks for the battles your rearguards attack. So definitely a powerful ability, giving you at least 2 extra drive checks that turn if you have your front row full. Potentially more if you have Totone, since of course she'll gain Twin Drive on rearguard as well. And like I mentioned before, this combos very nicely with Totone since her ability is not once per turn, so if you keep checking front triggers during any of those rearguard drive checks, you can potentially restand more of your rearguards and get even more drive checks that turn as well. So can definitely be a crazy card in this deck. If you want to run the Nationless over triggers, one of them instead of this, you can go that route as well. But I did just keep this because I like some of the crazy plays you can pull off with it. So that is the deck, so we will go ahead and have our 1 fight with it. And I think we'll fight Shinobu this time. And we'll be going first. Alright, so we'll discard Digriel to ride, and then just end our turn. And I'll let that one through. And he gets a crit trigger right off the bat. So we're going to be going straight to 2. Oh, maybe not, because we got a heal trigger, which we do get. So I'll be going to 1 instead. Alright, so we'll discard Balmy Violinist to ride Pentagleam. And then we can use Tear Square's ability to Counterblast. And draw. So then I'm going to just go ahead and attack. And he gets a heal trigger as well, but his is wasted. Which I am playing as Yuki for this fight, since for some reason if you play as Kuro, Aquamarine actually doesn't get her full screen cut in. But anyway, I'm going to let this one through. Alright, so I'm going to discard... and I'll drop that crit, I guess. To ride Hexaorb Sorceress. And Pentagleam skill will let us look at the top 3, and we can put them in any order on the top. So, let's see, we're going to put Octoray first, along with Alpak, and then Circling third. And then we're going to call Octoray from her hand, and use her ability to Counterblast. And we check the top 2. And we'll add that copy of Octoray to our hand and leave Alpak on top. So we got 2 guaranteed triggers coming our way. And let's see, if I throw down Totone, I don't have any other counterblasts to use her ability this turn. So I'm going to go ahead and call Effulgent Wizard. And then we can just go ahead and attack with our Vanguard first. And of course we'll get our front trigger, which triggers Effulgent Wizard's ability to gain another 5k. And Hexaorb's ability to let us give 10k to Octoray. And of course we'll get our heal as well, which we do get, so we will heal 1. And we will give that power to Wizard. And his skill will once again power him up by another 5k. And again, Hexaorb's ability will go off, and we'll give that 10k to Octoray again. So we got both our rear guards to 40k. So then we'll attack with a Effulgent Wizard. And his ability will let us look at the top card of the deck. And it is a crit trigger. And we can't move it anywhere, but we know we got a damage trigger coming. So then we'll attack with Octoray. And let's that one through too. And he did fill up his board. So he'll get 3 attacks this turn when he restands Greed on. So let's see. I think I'm going to go ahead and guard this one by doing a double intercept. And then we'll let this one through. And we know we'll damage check that crit trigger. And he got no triggers on that. Nice. And we'll get the crit that we knew was coming. And now I'll suck in 4 of his rear guards to restand Greed on. And I could block this, but I think I actually want the damage. So I think I'm going to let it through too. He does get another twin drive. But again, no triggers. And we got another crit trigger that is wasted, unfortunately. Alright, so now we can Persona Ride into Hexaorb Sorceress Aquamarine. So now I'm going to go ahead and call Totone over here. And then I'm also going to call another Octoray. And we'll use her ability to counterblast. And we look at the top 2, and neither one of those are triggers. So I'm actually going to go ahead and add both those to my hand, and then we had the bottom deck 1 So we will bottom deck one of these wizards. And then we'll call Digriel over here. And then I think we are good to go. So we will go ahead and attack with Totone first. He gets a crit trigger. But we do have him to 5 already. And we do not want to use Totone's ability right now. Instead, we want to attack with Octoray, boosted by Digriel. And Octoray's ability will give her an extra 5k since we Persona Road this turn. And he guards up 3 cards out of his hand. And again, we do not want to use Totone. So now we want to attack with Aquamarine, who does have triple drive. And he guards for 1 to pass, wow. Oh, and we pull our over trigger. So, yeah, I think we got that one. So we're going to give that power to our Vanguard. And use Aquamarine's ability to Soul Blast one. And now we will restand. We'll go ahead and stand Totone. And we get a heal trigger as well, which we do not get, but we will give that power to Totone, which will be 20k. And again, use Aquamarine's ability to Soul Blast. And now we can restand Octoray. So then Digriel's ability will also let us bounce her back to our hand. So this attack should have him right here, but even if it doesn't, we got 2 more attacks with drive checks on them. But yeah, we got him with that one. So there you go, that was version 2 of my Hexaorb deck. Very fun deck to play, especially with the new boss, the new Hexaorb form. So anyway, I'll be back soon with more deck profiles. Next up, I'll be doing version 2 of my Velstra Blitz Industry deck. So until then, I guess that's all for this video. So lots of luck to you and yours.